This is the Understanding by Design template. So when you are in the process of developing curriculum, you're going to make a template similar to this in many school districts. Not all school districts in the state of New Jersey follow Understanding by Design. However, most school districts have parts of this template. This template I particularly like because not only am I a fan of Understanding by Design, but Grant Wiggins did a lot of work with publishing companies. As a result, in textbooks that you will find in any content area, you will find elements of this particular template that you're going to learn. You will also see elements of this template in the Rutgers University lesson plan template. But this is for a unit. You would not do this for every single lesson that you design. Later on in the course, I'll actually show you a template for curriculum design that the Department of Education is really supporting. Specific components are required by the Department of Education in all curriculum. So Understanding by Design does meet a lot of those criteria, except for the fact of under stage 3 when we get there, the Department of Ed wants it to be even more specific. And there is a debate about that. However, when the Department of Ed gives the school districts a requirement and uses it during monitoring, they win. So what they want tends to be what we will get. So our stage 3, when I get there, will be more specific than what you're seeing here, and I'll explain it in a minute. The original UBD template had 3 stages. Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3. So it went like this: your enduring understandings, essential questions, your desired results with standards and skills and knowledge, what all of your kids are going to learn. Stage 2 was your performance assessment. Remember, when I talked in the very first video, I talked about thinking through what you want the students to learn and how you're going to know that they learned it first. What does that learning look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What are your criteria of success here? And then you do all of that work before you even plan your stage 3, which is your learning activities that align to stage 2 and stage 1. So let's look. Stage 1, your learning outcomes. This is where your standards are going to be. So you're going to look at your core curriculum content standards and your New Jersey student learning standards, which really are the Common Core state standards. New Jersey has renamed the standards. They changed minimal wording. However, it still directly aligns to the Common Core state standards with some very minor changes. You're also going to have your interdisciplinary connections. And how does what this unit is teaching apply to science if it's language arts? Apply to math if it's language arts? Apply to social studies if it's language arts? Apply to technology if it's language arts? When you develop your UBD unit for your research project that you're reading and working on right now, you will actually be required to have 2 core standards and 2 interdisciplinary standards. So if I'm teaching language arts, I'm going to have 2 ELA standards, and then I most likely will have a tech standard and perhaps a social studies standard. Transfer. This is the entire point of why we teach. Why are the students learning what you're teaching them? Why should they care? I go back to that same analogy of the 2 trains who intersect at one point traveling at different speeds. Don't care, not on the train. So how do we get them to care? How does this learning apply to later life? How can we transfer it into other content area? You then have your enduring understandings and your essential questions. These are 2 areas that we've already addressed so far in this module. You then have your knowledge and skills. Most of stage 1 will not be differentiated. We will hold all students, regardless of their learning ability, accountable to most of stage 1. When we get into differentiation later on in this course, you'll see that we can differentiate some components, minimal. However, for the most part, we hold all students accountable. Stage 2, this is our performance assessment. And for the purposes of this course, we're going to look at the GRASP assessment, which when we develop our performance assessment, and performance assessment means that we must perform something, we must demonstrate the learning. We're going to focus on our goal, what role the students will be taking when completing the task. Are they a scientist? Are they an engineer? Are they an educator? Are they a politician? Who we're writing towards, who we're completing this task for, the situation that we're setting up, and the product or the performance. And then, of course, our standards and criteria for success, which would be our rubric. We're going to look at what other evidence you might be collecting throughout the unit, and the student self-assessment. This is critical. Student self-assessment is actually higher level assessment, and you can teach a student as young as 5 how to accurately self-assess themselves. If you teach them, they're not going to give themselves the automatic A. They will the first time. They will the first time when they're seniors, they'll the first time when they're in kindergarten, but they won't. When you teach students how to authentically self-assess, they can do it. The last stage of our traditional UBD template is stage 3, and that's the learning component that you structure in your classroom. What activities are you going to do that will help them to be able to perform their performance assessment in stage 2 successfully, and we'll get to our desired result in stage 1. Now for this stage 3, I've broken it down to be a little more specific. If we were designing this for New Jersey's Department of Education, when we get to this section, it would be by week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. We're not doing that here, but you still could get to that level of specificity through the template that I'm showing you. So when you're looking at stage 3, you're talking about what you are going to present to the students, what the students are going to do specifically, what learning activities you're going to design here in stage 3, and we're going to get to each component of this. And then last but not least, this is new. This was not in the traditional UBD template, but I like it. This is where we talk about differentiation. You're going to see some sections right here that says things like not required for this project. This is because this is a template you'll use for Edmodo. I left all the components of stage 4 here, but the only parts that you'll be required to complete are right here, your differentiation for struggling students and students who need a challenge. The other components, though, are here. I want you to look at them. I want you to think about the questions, but for our project, you do not have to complete them. So for stage 4, I call it our differentiation stage because that's what you'll be doing. So when we go back to the very beginning of our UBD template, our entire stage 1 desired results focuses on our goal of trying to get kids to think. We want them to think. We want them to understand. We want them to do more than know. And that is, what do we want our students to learn? How are we going to know that they actually learned it? What are we going to do or have our students do in order for them to be successful in performing it, showing us what they've learned, and also getting our students to be able to think and understand? This is a good overview of the template that you'll be working with throughout this course.